What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So, it turns out there might be an issue with the Crash Team Racing, or CTR, for the Nintendo Switch. And we're going to go over that as it seems like it's disappearing, like, completely from places you would normally pre-order it from. And then even their website, the official Crash website, has changed regarding the Switch version, which we're going to talk about because it's something to keep an eye on, because this isn't the first time something like this has happened and it wasn't good, because we're still waiting for that game to come out. Yeah, we're going to talk about that, and then also we're going to talk about the holiday season and how it might be your last chance to get a brand new Super Nintendo or Nintendo Classic, at least at retail. As always, guys, enjoy these videos, hit the like button, it does help out. We're going to start with some quick news, and we're going to start with Battle Princess Madeline because, well, it was delayed, and now it's been delayed again. Specifically, it's been delayed on the Switch and the PS4 again. So the PS4 version's been pushed to December 20th. So you're going to have to wait a bit longer for that one. And the Nintendo Switch version, which was also delayed with the PS4 version, no date on that apparently. Now, it sounds like, based on what they were saying, that it has something to do with communication back and forth with Nintendo and Sony and getting certain patches through. I guess scheduling, maybe they got a kickback from that where it's like, hey, you can't do this, or you gotta fix that with the patch, then resubmit it. We've heard about this before with Nintendo specifically, and I'm sure there's been issues before with things like Microsoft and even Sony, as there have been certain games that launched like a day later on the Xbox at times. So it's a shame to see this thing having such a rough and, I guess, just fragmented launch across the systems, but at least the PlayStation version will be out. The Xbox and Steam version have already launched, and, well, we'll see when the Switch version comes out. Hopefully this year at this rate. I mean, the 20th for the PS4, hopefully it's that week or the following week. Yeah, hopefully it's ahead of Christmas time. That's the biggest thing. So we'll see. I guess they can technically also launch the week after Christmas right in there, and a lot of people who just got their Switch will have their first look at the eShop, and I guess they could still get a bunch of sales from that. Also, we had some actual solid numbers for once in the UK when GameIndustry.biz actually tweeted out some interesting information. I'm just seeing the tweet here. This is from Christopher Dring, who actually works with GameIndustry.biz, and he says, after last weekend, the PS4 sales for the 2018 sale passed 1 million in the UK, which means the console is now sold well over 6 million in the market in 5 years. And then down from that, he also talks about the Switch being right around 1.4 million so far in the UK lifetime. Now, I don't really know about Xbox because, well, Microsoft doesn't really like talking about it, and I guess neither do they. Would it be weird if they don't even know what the actual number is for Xbox systems sold? Because Microsoft doesn't really tell anybody, but I guess in their position, they really don't want to talk about it much. But it's something to keep an eye on. The PlayStation just absolutely, I think, owns that territory completely. 6 million just in the UK is massive. And since we've been talking about the leaks that took place with Smash Bros. Ultimate specifically, that was a really big leak and could have had Nintendo even alter their creators program, because they did talk about pirated games specifically there. We've been wondering at times as to how some of these companies can track down leakers. We've seen it before. When a while ago Pokemon leaked, Nintendo figured it out. Who leaked it? Well, there's some pretty clever tricks that they've actually designed into some of these betas or early copies, apparently, as there was a person on Twitter, as you're seeing here, under the name of Cullen, who worked with Microsoft back during the 360 days to talk about how he was able to work in measures to detect who was leaking what. So if there was like something under NDA that was out there, they were able to design a way to pick out what Xbox was doing it, and this is what he said. One of the most fun jobs I ever had was figuring out how to embed the serial number of your Xbox 360 into rings emanating from the bottom right, so we could track and identify leaks. And those rings on the bottom right underneath that Xbox 360 symbol would actually like ripple out from that Xbox symbol. And based on what they're saying here, they go on further to clarify, based on how many rings would come out at once, the spacing, this would all basically work together to give them an idea of the serial number from which the leaks were coming from for that Xbox, which is insane, because no one would have ever looked at those ripple effects from that Xbox symbol and think, oh, maybe that's the serial number from my Xbox in like Morse code or some kind of code. That's what I mean. You never know what they design into these, whether it's the menus or who knows, your avatars, all kinds of stuff that could happen that they use to detect who's leaking this stuff. It's pretty interesting to see. And when I saw that, I was like, wow, that is That's downright clever. I would have never thought of that. It's pretty interesting, and who knows how some of these other companies are working to design in, I guess, ways to see who's leaking, whether it's the background or the character or some of the imaging around the edges. Who knows, but interesting stuff. And with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. We're going to start with a bit more happy news when it comes to updates and patches, as opposed to something like Battle Princess Madeline getting delayed again. Let's talk about Stardew Valley, because it is getting its multiplayer patch for the Switch today. Like today, you should be able to go download it, and this was pretty cool to see them announce, because that means you'll be able to invite in up to 3 friends to play with you in Stardew Valley. You guys can run around, go through caves, I guess farm, do everything you would normally do with multiple people around you. And interestingly enough, if you read down their patch notes, they do talk about how you will use the Nintendo Online voice chat. And I guess that means they have some kind of work with the application on your phone, or maybe you don't need it. It's not as crystal clear, and I guess you can try it out today for yourself to see if that is the case. You have to, plug into the phone. And I would have preferred, based on what we're seeing with some of these other companies that are basically foregoing that completely, right? Like we saw with, for example, Fortnite. I would like to see some of these companies do that. I think it would have been great if Stardew Valley said, yeah, you just plug into the Switch, the top of it, or you sync up a headset with the wireless plug-in for the USB, syncs it across the room, and then you're off and running with voice. Doesn't quite look that way, but we'll have to test it and find out a bit more. Very exciting, and also if you are around the people you're playing with, there is local communication that you, of course, don't need the online for. It's just basically wireless LAN play in the same room. Pretty awesome stuff there. Stardew Valley is an outstanding game that you can just play for seemingly forever. And now you add in multiplayer, it's going to last even longer. And according to them, the next thing up is to do the Xbox One and the PS4 multiplayer. So you should be looking for that coming up. But if you already have the Switch version, you can go ahead, get the update, and start playing with your friends. Next up, let's talk about the situation around Crash Team Racing on the Nintendo Switch. See, what's odd about this situation is it appears that people are having their pre-orders terminated, and it's not possible at this time to pre-order on Amazon or other sites around the world to get the Switch version of Crash Team Racing, which was announced and present on these websites earlier, and now they're just not. So it looks like you can't get Crash right now, at least pre-order it. And then if you go over to their website, instead of the other versions which tell you that it's coming out in June with a specific date, it just says coming soon, which is a bit concerning if you were one of the people who was looking to get it on your Switch. It almost feels like the Redout situation, which is a game that's still not out, by the way. It was supposed to come out a while ago. They did take pre-orders. Those pre-orders started to get canceled. They had to reconfirm that it was coming out, and it's still been hazy ever since then. We still don't really know a lot about when Redout's actually coming out. They just keep saying soon. But I look at this and I wonder if this is even a Dark Souls situation where this game is going to be pushed back like beyond the other versions. So it was supposed to come out in June, and they're like, well, cartridge sizes or manufacturing costs, because this is supposed to be a $40 game, right? It's at least what we were seeing. Are they having an issue? Do they have to push it back and it is a Dark Souls situation? Because that would be kind of a shame, as people got really excited that it appeared that it was launching with the other versions, which is something that the Switch still has not yet had when it comes to these games. Obviously, the Crash Insane Trilogy was pushed a year because of Sony's exclusivity. The Spyro trilogy allegedly was started later in development, so that's coming up maybe next year. And now here we are with Crash Team Racing that is MIA right now. It just says coming soon, and then there's no way to pre-order. So who knows what's happening right now? I would like to see some kind of statement from Activision just saying, this is what we're doing, this is why this has happened, this is why it's dropped out completely, and it's coming soon on our website, because we're kind of just left not knowing what's going on. So if you did get a pre-order, let me know if it got canceled through Amazon or any other retailer, or you just been looking around and can't figure out why you can't pre-order it, because it is a bit odd. Next up, let's talk about some retro news with Quake. Now, if you were a bit older, or maybe you like checking out some of the older shooters, whether it's the original Doom or the original Quake, well, you've probably played through it several times over. Maybe you got into the modding scene and started creating your own levels. But one thing's for sure, we don't really get any new content for it because it's completely legacy at this point, right? It was released in 1996, and while a lot of us probably played a ton of it, most people have probably moved on. Well, what's really cool about this situation is there is a bit of a Christmas present out there right now for Quake fans or people who enjoyed playing it and maybe want to go back and see something new, because there is a new map pack that's come out. Yeah, it's been provided by mappers who generally create these, and there are now 21 new maps to play, and it's actually being dubbed the Quake Xmas Jam 2018. 21 new maps that you can add to the shooter, and what's cool is it's available for download now. In fact, the link down below in the sources will let you, it will tell you how to install everything and put it all together, and it is very, very cool to see this. Now, they have not added any extra enemies or anything, just a bunch of new maps that you can check out and play through, and what a cool way. I mean, Quake is still a cult classic. People remember it fondly, and if you have never played Quake, you know, I know it's very old and obviously dated, but it's worth checking out because it is a landmark for shooters. It was Doom and then Quake for me. Played a lot of Doom, then I played Quake, and then when you start playing Quake multiplayer, that's it. It was so much fun, so it's worth checking out, and if you're playing Quake now, well, there you go, a bunch of new maps to check out. In our last bit of news, let's talk about those classic consoles from Nintendo, the Super Nintendo, and the Nintendo Classic System. They've been big sellers. Nintendo's told us they've sold over 10 million of them at this point, and they've been doing pretty well, it seems. A lot of people like getting them. They're great Christmas presents, obviously, because it's all-inclusive on the box. You buy it for $60 or $80, and then you hand it off to a friend or a family member, and they're good to go to check out the old classics. But another weird situation from Nintendo, because they've discontinued the Nintendo Classic before, and then they brought it back. But it seems that this holiday is it for the classic systems. Again, I don't really get it, because unless they really are ramping up for the Nintendo 64 Classic and they need the factory lines or whatnot for it, it seems like an odd decision. But this was actually in an interview with Reggie saying, there's no ability for add-on content with our classic console. So when you purchase the console, it's coming with that set roster of content. We worked very hard, both for the NES Classic and the Super Nintendo Classic, to really have the best games that define that generation. We've said that the current systems are the extent of our classic program. We've also been clear that, at least from an America's perspective, these products are going to be available through the holiday season, and once they sell out, they're gone, and that's it. The way that consumers will be able to continue participating with our classic content is going to be through Nintendo Switch Online. And we just released 3 new games from the NES generation onto that platform. We look at that as the main way that consumers will be able to experience that legacy content. Yeah, this is a real thing, apparently. This was in an interview Reggie had with The Hollywood Reporter. And I don't really know why they would be discontinuing their stuff again, specifically these two systems that seem to sell well. And unless they really are working on Nintendo 64 Classic, which a lot of us assume they are, I don't know why they would get rid of these that have probably been going down more and more in price as they've gone along to make. So they're actually probably making some halfway decent money on these things, and who knows. One thing's for sure, though, if they actually discontinue these, they need to get that Nintendo app up to par, because drip feeding 3 classic Nintendo games every month isn't going to cut it. Super Nintendo games need to be there early 2019. They have to be. If you can't buy a Super Nintendo Classic brand new from Nintendo, you know, at your local store, why wouldn't they be on the Nintendo Switch? If they really need to work on that, and the fact that we don't know January's games yet and we're almost halfway through December, I hope that's telling. I hope that means that they're going to hit us with something in January, whether it's through a direct or something where they're like, oh yeah, Super Nintendo games, they're now on that app, so you can go log in and download Super Mario World, A Link to the Past, and Mega Man X. Boom, 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 that's the first month. That would be pretty cool to see, and I think people would get really, really excited, especially since you can play Super Mario World online with a friend. So I hope that's what they have in mind, but if they don't, and they're discontinuing their classic systems, and they're not ramping up for the Nintendo 64 Classic, Nintendo, I have no idea what you're doing. And ladies and gentlemen, let's go do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit the like button. It really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether it is Crash Team Racing on the Switch, what's going on there, if you got an email back from Amazon or whoever. I'm curious myself, because it's very, very odd, and it doesn't look great right now for the Switch version. What about the Quake map packs? Are you happy to hear that there is some news around the original Quake game that's been gone for a while now, but cool to see that new content's coming in. Then what about the classic systems? Do you think Nintendo should discontinue them, or do you think they should keep selling them, or maybe you want them to discontinue them if that means better games on their online service? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.